What first sparked your interest into the hospitality sector?
Oh, that's an easy one. That was working around my dad. My dad was a fruit and potato merchant in the northwest of England, a small town. Southport, and so I used to spend quite a lot of time with him after school. After I'd done my homework, I used to go to the warehouse and always at weekend. So by working with my dad in fruit and veg and potatoes, onions, carrots, all basic ingredients for school meals, believe it or not, that also gave me the opportunity to deliver into the kitchens and the hotels and the restaurants and the bars and shops around Southport area. So as a delivery boy at weekends and on school holidays, it took me into the kitchens, which I really enjoyed the characters. I liked the people in the kitchens. They were always very friendly and great fun, really good fun. And they always used to give me a bit of every now and again, I used to manage to be able to sort of scrape a bacon sandwich off one of the breakfast chefs in one of the hotels, which was always great fun as a young lad because you're always hungry. And I think the other side of it was my brother was a chef, and my big brother was 7 years my senior. And so I followed him into lots of things, boxing and food being sort of the key and the most important thing. But food was always around me, not just on the table at home, but in my sort of part-time working life. So that's how I got into cookery.
How did your experiences at school really help to shape your career decisions?
So you have to repeat that question. That photograph you just put up there has just shocked me. I was so young there. I wasn't listening. I was just focusing on my own face there. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Don't worry.
Easily distracted, as my school teachers always used to say.
Well,
sorry, what was the question?
Well, thinking about school, how did your experiences at school also help to shape your career decisions alongside all of your personal experiences with your family?
I'm going to be honest about school. It wasn't brilliant. I wasn't very good. I didn't pay much attention, and I think the draw of my father's workplace, which was wagons and forklift trucks and men and women used to just, go into the kitchens, and just the fantastic people seemed more interesting than the people I was at school. But that was then, and that was a long time ago. So to give you a bit of perspective, we're talking about the late 70s and the early 80s. I left school in 1985, and so it was a different time. And that distraction of my dad's workplace basically sort of took my eye off school a little bit. And I often get asked, what did I leave school with? And the honest answer is I don't know. I don't know what qualifications I had. And I feel like maybe I've let myself down a little bit. Maybe it's okay sitting here now, having done everything that I've done and can laugh about it. But for me, being in the position that I'm in, there may be hundreds and thousands of people in the same boat as me who don't or haven't worked their way up to doing what I've done. And so I just wish that I paid more attention at school. And I wish that my parents had maybe paid a little bit more attention to what I was doing, because my mum and dad worked incredibly hard and didn't really probably notice where I was slipping in lessons. But it was, I think, very fortunate to have my parents, my father especially, who sort of guided me into restaurants, and my brother, obviously. And so there's one thing I did realise, and looking back on reflection, is that I fell into something that I adored, which was kitchens and cookery. And so when I left school at the age of 15, and that's when I left school, I just turned 16 in the holiday after, I went to catering college, and that's where I really found something that I truly loved. And there's a really interesting thing here about GCSEs or people who are looking at A-levels next, and I hear it in schools that my children go to: choose the subjects that you want to learn, choose the subjects that really excite you. And there's an element of truth in that. Nothing at school excited me, and I didn't do very well. But I was lucky enough to drop into catering college and found something that I loved. And I caught up on everything that I'd missed at school. So I was very fortunate that I found a passion for something at the age of 15, 16.
Can you talk us through in a little bit more detail what catering college was like for you and what you really learned while you were there?
As a worker, I wanted to go straight to work at 15, 16, 17. But my father basically and my brother had chosen that I was going to go to catering college on a full-time course, which was every day of the week. Whereas my big brother did a day release and spent most of his time at work and one day at college. And for some reason, they chose on my behalf, and I went to catering college on a full-time course. And I was really a bit annoyed and slightly upset about that. And I don't know why I was. Maybe I was just scared of more education. But when I got there, I absolutely loved it. I learned so much about all sectors of hospitality. Even though I only ever wanted to be a chef, I was given the opportunity to work in the restaurant, behind a bar, serve wine, health and hygiene. I learned how to make a bed. I learned how to iron. I learned how to serve wine. I did all the practical and the theory and so many other new subjects. I learned a bit of kitchen French along the way as well. And so catering college really opened my eyes up to lots of other opportunities that may have piqued my interest, but deep down inside, I always knew I was going to be a chef. It was the one thing I enjoyed the most, and it was being in that white jacket and having that blue apron on and putting the chef's hat on. For me, it was I can only describe it as it was the feeling like a soldier puts a uniform on, and my dad and my lecturers were always on our back about making sure our whites were ironed, they were clean, we wore our hats properly, and we had a real level of respect when we went into the kitchen, because it is a dangerous place at times, and you need to have a huge amount of discipline for yourself and all of the people around you. But catering college was great. But what I would say is why was catering college so good? Not because because I enjoyed it. It's because the teachers were incredible. They were amazing people who loved their job and loved us as students, because we all had one goal, one ambition, and that was we all loved food. And the teachers were funny, they were exciting, they made it interesting. When you struggled, they helped you, and they were always there. And that was a very different feeling to when I was at school, where I felt like slightly lost, left behind, and never really noticed. And I can only reflect on that as an adult now. I didn't know it at the time. That was something that my mum and dad should have picked up on, but they didn't. And I know that will be the case for a lot of people around the country, but you will get there. We all get there somehow if we've got a determination and a love for something.
What has been the biggest challenge that you've faced through your career, maybe that we don't see on the fancy screens, and how did you overcome that?
Biggest challenge for me, I will say, is people. People are the biggest challenge in life, and not just in my job, but everything. We're always trying to read the person next to us. We're always trying to understand what someone's thinking. We're always concerned about our friends, our family, the people in the workplace. And I was never taught how to manage people. I had to learn on the job. And as a young man, at school, for instance, I never played team sports apart from when it was PE. My other hobby outside of cookery was boxing. And I was often asked, why did I choose boxing as a sport? Well, two reasons. One, my big brother did it. And two, I didn't need to rely on anyone else in a boxing ring apart from myself. And I boxed competitively from the age of 11 to the age of 18 when I left catering college and went to London. And so it was my sort of go-to release outside of work. And I found when I became a head chef at the age of 25, which was really young, a little bit too young probably, but I was so ambitious and I drove very fast in my career. I found it really hard to understand what managing and understanding other people's needs was all about. And it took me a long time to be able to put my arm around a colleague or someone I was teaching or somebody. I was always very forceful. And so I forced my way to the top by ignoring the people around me. But that was yesterday. That's not the way the world works today. It's moved on. Times have changed and I have had to change. And so on the back of that, I've become a better manager because systems have pushed me into areas of understanding other people, which is something that at the age of 52, I think is really important, that I'm still learning now. I still have to read what the people around me are thinking so that I can support them through their job and not suppress their job. And so, yeah, I would say people was the toughest thing I've had to learn and still learning today. And I'm sure there's a lot of teachers in the room listening to this would agree with me on that one.
So can you talk us through kind of the essential skills that you think that our young people would need if they're thinking about a career in this profession?
I think hospitality is a career that has got so much diversity to it. And I don't know what the audience thinks about hospitality, but for many years gone by, most people have said it's a horrible job, it's a second-class job, it doesn't pay well, it's long hours and it's unsociable. Well, that was yesterday. Today is a different story. It offers everything. It offers good jobs. It offers good wages. There's lots of people that work at weekends and at nights, not just people in hospitality. School teachers go home and mark your work when you're at home watching television. Some of your teachers will be working at night time and at weekends. We just don't see it. Hospitality offers absolutely everything, and it offers a career path. If you're prepared to look into the world of food and hospitality, I think what you will unravel and what you'll find is actually quite magical if you love it and enjoy it. And yes, it's hard work, but if any of you in the room are going to go into whatever career it is you're going to go to get to the top or to enjoy it, you're going to have to understand it and you are going to have to work hard. That picture on the screen there is me signing my cookbooks. I never thought in a million years I'd write a cookbook. I'm not even brilliant at writing. What I am is passionate, and I surround myself with good people. That cookbook there was I think my 8th cookbook. I never left school to write a cookbook. It just happened through a career path. I never left school to go into hospitality, to be on television, especially a judge on Masterchef. And when I was growing up, Masterchef was on telly in the late 80s, and a slightly different show, but it was on telly with a gentleman called Lloyd Grossman. And I was inspired by television. I was inspired by that show and another show. What I would say to anyone listening to this is if you ever think about going into hospitality, do your research. Please don't just look at TikTok. Don't just look at Twitter. Don't just look at Instagram. Those vehicles show you where to find things. What you need to do is get out, go meet people, go knock on some doors, go and talk to people, and go and listen to other people's experiences. And one thing I would say is the local cafe, pub, restaurant, wherever you're working in, maybe in a part-time job, isn't a reflection of hospitality. It is purely a tidbit, a snippet of an industry. It is one part of one place that you see, and that doesn't sum up an industry. You must look at the broader prospect, or the bigger picture of an industry, and it's huge. It's colossal. Think of food as fuel that we all need every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day, all over the world. One thing you'll never be in hospitality is you'll never be out of work. People will always want to eat. That's whether it's providing farming, growing, working at supermarkets, cooking in restaurants, traveling the world, cooking on an airline, so on and so on and so on. It offers so much. It's quite an extraordinary industry. But if you don't look into it, it could pass you by.
What for you has been a career highlight so far, and why would that be?
I've had many career highlights, too long to list, from winning competitions to being top grades in all my tests at college. I came top in all the theories, won every competition, had the door open to go to work in London, worked alongside and met Gordon Ramsay, been in many different TV shows, written 8 cookbooks, travelled the world. I think being my own boss eventually was one of the biggest highlights, and it was never something that I set out to do. I never set out to do any of the above. Cook for the Queen on her 80th birthday, Princess Diana, anyone that's in royal family, actors, Hollywood stars, even participated in the making of a movie called Burnt with Bradley Cooper and Sienna Miller. Coke was part of the writing of that and the screen part of it as well. So I was a consultant on a movie. I didn't leave Southport at the age of 17 to do this. I just loved my job and worked the best I possibly could. And I probably did have a work ethic that was a little bit different to everyone around me, because my father taught me how to work hard. So when I left Southport and went to London at the age of 18, I walked into the Savoy Hotel. There was 111 chefs worked in that building, and I worked in there, and I worked harder than anyone around me. And that's how I stood out from the crowd. And that door opened another door, and that door opened another door. Working in New York, Paris, Amsterdam, London, and the countryside of the United Kingdom, in various different country house hotels. It's a varied career. But when I left Liverpool Lime Street at 17 to come to London, I didn't know where I was going. I just did one thing at a time, and I didn't look too far down the line. So my advice to anybody in the room is only look at what's in front of you today. Don't think too far down the corridor of a long light, or don't look down the corridor of too big a dreams. Just look at what's in front of you. There's nothing wrong with dreaming, and there's nothing wrong at looking at anything down the line, but just think about the bridge you need to get to it. And in between, from one end side of a bridge to the other side, there's a whole mass of water, and you need to know how to get across that water to get to the sort of the end of the rainbow. We never reach the end of a rainbow. It's just something that we just continuously strive to reach. I'm still doing it, and I don't know how long that bridge is, but I'm really enjoying the part of sort of walking across it. And I never really know what's coming my way. I just do my very best. Every day I go to work, I just do my very, very best, and that's all I can do. And what will be, will be.
Wow, you've had quite an incredible career, and some again really, really great piece of advice for our young people that are at the start of their careers now as well.
So everybody listening to this, you're probably sitting listening to this and looking at these pictures and thinking, how I will never achieve that. I will say this to each and every person sat right there now. I have been in your chair. I have been in your seat. I have sat with the point of, how am I going to get to do what I want to do? Where do I go? Just all the confusions that we all have and that we think about. I know how we all say how difficult it is to be able to get from A to B. It isn't. It's all about the ability just to get up and get out and do things. Get out of our bedrooms, get out of bed, be motivated, be active. And I think, unfortunately, there's one thing that is the huge and the biggest distraction of all for youth, you, the audience, and adults and many people alike. And I always say it at every talk that I ever do, is the biggest distraction in life is this. This is what takes our eye off our goals, because we spend so much time looking and listening to this. This is just a vehicle. Don't let it take over your life. This is something that is needed today in the modern world, but you do need to get out there and go and meet people and talk to people, especially your careers officer. Don't rely on this to give you the advice that you think you need to move forward in your future life. I say that to everybody. I need to get that off my chest.
100%. And I imagine there's lots of teachers now in all of the classrooms with their students saying, I told you, Marcus Wareing says, go and talk to your careers officer, I told you.